Sorry, that went off. The maybe it's network. Everything just went off. So let's see if we'll continue from where we stopped. So we've ended up discussing, we've done profit and loss, which is the last part we took. We've done simple interest. We've looked at percentage error. And then we are going to finally look at ratio and what? And rate. Now, when we talk about ratio and rate, what do we mean by ratio and rate? We're going to look at ratio first, and then we'll look at rate. Now, what do we mean by ratio? We're going to consider ratio. So what do we mean by ratio? Ratio is used when we compare two things. So it's numerical comparison between two quantities of the same what kind, showing the number of times one contained or is contained within the what the other. Now it has no unit. When you look at rate and you look at ratio, it has no unit. Now, if you are following me, I just want you to make some noise. Let's know that you're following what you are truly learning. Now, let's look at that. Now, take note that ratio and rate has no unit. So all we need to do is when we compare two values, let's take for example that we are comparing value A and value B, is going to be, these two values is going to be like, we have A ratio what? Ratio B. And when you are doing this, this is just similar to you having A divided by B. Don't get confused, because when you have A ratio B, it's the same thing as having A divided by B, because you are comparing those two what? Those two variables. So when we are given two variables, A and B, their ratio is going to be A ratio what? A ratio B. Now, how do you calculate the amount of the original value when you are giving ratio? Now, whenever you are giving ratio and the ratio has to do with A and B, and they told you to calculate the amount, the value that A will be, value of B, and you ask to calculate the value of A or the amount of A, you should always remember that the amount of A, this is a general notation, the amount of A or the amount of B, let's take B, is equal to the B value in the ratio divided by, always take note of it, it's very important, the total ratio. And the total ratio is going to be A plus what? Plus B. And you multiply that by the what? By the total what? The total amount. You multiply it by the total amount. Now, this is not going to be A plus B, because you have to find the ratio of A and find the ratio of B, and when you add them, that will give you the what? The total ratio. Maybe when we take an example, you're going to see this more clearer. Now, let me see if we have a very good example here that we can take for you to understand what we really mean by this. Good. I have one good example, and you're going to learn a lot from this example. Now, let's solve this question on ratio. The question says, three girls share a number of apples. The number of apples in the ratio 5:3 ratio what? Ratio 2. If the highest share is 40 apples. Find the smallest share. Now you see that question, you're asked to find the smallest what? You're asked to find the smallest share. Now the question says 3 girls share a number of apples in the ratio 5:3:2. If the highest share is 40 apples, find the smallest what? Share. And this is a JAMB UTME question. It may look difficult though, but we are going to solve it. So whenever you're given a question like this, the first thing that will come to your mind is to let the total apple be a certain variable. Now, let us let the total apple, let the total apples be what? Let's make it to be y. Now, this is the solution. If we let the total apple be y, remember that we are given a ratio, and the ratio is what? 5:3:2. This is for girl 1, girl 2, and girl what? Girl 3. Now, if you are given this, now remember that you are asked to find the highest what? We are given the highest share. That's what we are given. We want to analyze things we are given. We are given the total, we are given the ratio that this apple is shared. We have the highest share of apple is what? Is 40 apples. We are asked to find the smallest what? The smallest share. Now, what we need to do is to look at the total ratio. What is the total ratio? Remember, I told you that if you want to find the amount of a certain ratio, maybe the highest one, either the first girl, second girl, or the third girl, it has to be with the amount equal to the value for the highest divided by the total sum of the ratio, and that will be multiplied by the total amount or the total apples. Now, are we giving the total apples? We aren't giving the total apple, but we are taking the total apple to be what? To be y. Now, let's solve that question. From that given, now we want to find the value of y. If we can easily find the value of y, then we can be able to do what? We can be able to solve this. Now, from here, the total ratio will be equal to 5 plus 3 plus 2. And 5 plus 3 plus 2 is going to be equal to what? 10, right? It's going to be what? 5 plus 3, 5 plus 7, 2 is 7. 7 plus 3 is 10. Good, we are right. So that is going to give us what? 10. So once you have that as 10, the next thing we will now think of is, what is the total apple? The total apple is what? Y. And remember, they told us that the highest share is what? 40. So if we want to find the value of y, the total apple, we can say the highest share is equal to, the highest share is going to be equal to the highest what? The highest ratio, right? And which is the highest ratio? That's 5. The highest ratio divided by the total sum of the ratio, total ratio sum, multiplied by the total what? I told you the total amount of apple, which is what? which is y. So if we have that, we are going to have this to now become 40 to be equal to the highest ratio is what? 5. 5 divided by the sum 10 times what? Y. And that is what that equation is going to give us. So if that equation gives us that value, we're going to now have this to become what? We'll simplify that. We are going to have this to become, this will now give us 40 equal to 5y divided by 10. So when we cross multiply, we're going to have our 5y to be equal to 40 times 10 is 500. If we divide here by 5 and divide here by 5, we're going to have our y to be equal to 5 here 1. 5 in 40 is going to give us what? 8. So we're going to have y to be equal to 8. So the total apple we'll have is what? Is 80. Now you see the solution is becoming clearer. We now have the total ratio, we now have the total apple. That means we can easily find the smallest what? The smallest share, which is 2. So from this expression now, we are asked to find the smallest share. So we are going to find out what the smallest share is. What is the smallest share of that ratio? So that means the smallest share will now be equal to the smallest ratio divided by the total ratio sum, which is now what? 8. Are you seeing that? Very easy. So the smallest share will now be equal to, the smallest ratio is 2, so that will be 2 divided by the total ratio is 10, and this will be what? Multiplied by what? 8. Now, to simplify this, what is it going to give us? 10, this 0 will clear 0, and then we'll be left with what? 2 times what? 8. And 2 times 8 is going to give us what? 16 apples. So that means the smallest share is going to give us just 16 what? Apples. Very, very easy. Now, remember what I told you, that if you want to find the total ratio is the sum of all the ratio. It's very important because if you do that, you're going to have the total value. Now, once you have the total ratio, with the total ratio, you can be able to find the what? With the total ratio and the total value of the apples, or the total value given to you, you can be able to find each of these what? Each of the value for each of these what? Ratio. Now, take a glimpse at this example we've just taken, use it to solve a whole lot of questions in your past question. Now, let's look at the last part of our discussion today. We're going to consider rates. Now, let's look at rates finally. I hope you do understand this question we just solved. In case you have any question, don't forget to drop your question in the comment section of this video you're watching as a replay, and then I'll be so willing to answer your question. Now let's go ahead and look at the final part of our discussion, and that is going to be what? The rate. And this is the final part we'll be taking on the everyday mathematics segment. We're going to look at the what? The rate. Now, what do we want to learn from the rate? What is rate? Now, when we talk about the rate, what is the rate? Rate is the ratio between two related quantities. Now, that are in different units. When we say something is, there are two related quantities, but they are in different units. I can say kilometer per hour. Kilometer is distance, hour is time. So these are two different quantities, and they are in different units. we are trying to compare both of them, and that is what rate is. I can say something is in ampere per seconds. That is power and time. So all these are what? Ratio. Now in your exams, you can also be given question on what? You can also be given question on rate. Now let's look at let me see if we can find a very good question on rate, and then we can solve those questions and then round up with that question. Any question on rates? If you are able to find any question on rate, don't forget to drop the question in the comment section, and then let's do what? Let's discuss it. Now check for any question in your past question on rate. I'm searching if I will see any question in JAMB past question on rates. Though rate is very rare you see rate come out in JAMB examination. Rate is very rare you see rate, but most of the time what you see is ratio, you see simple interest, you see profit and loss, and then you see some other type of some other question on other words, on other topics. In the absence of we not seeing rates, this is exactly where we're going to round up our discussion for today. But before we round up our total discussion for today, I've seen one interesting question I want us to take. And this interesting question is on ratio. You'll love this question. Now let's look at this question. This question is on ratio. We're going to take this question and then we'll use it to round up our discussion for today. The question says 3 boys share some orange. The first receive 1/3 of the oranges, and the second receive 2/3 of the remainder. If the third boy receive the remaining 12 oranges, how many oranges did they share? That's an interesting question. Let me write down the question and then we'll solve it finally. 3 boys share some oranges. The first received 1/3 of the oranges, and the second received 2/3 of the remainder. The question now says, if the third boy received the remaining 12 oranges, how many oranges did they share? Now, this is an interesting question. I want us to quickly solve it and then we round up our discussion for today. Say 3 boys share oranges. They didn't tell us the amount. The first received 1/3 of the oranges, and the second received 2/3 of the remainder. If the third boy received the remaining 12 oranges, how many oranges did they share? Now, do you remember that they told us the share of the third boy that he has what? 12 oranges. But the first and the second boy, they only gave us their what? Their fraction, right? So how do we solve this question? Let's look at how we're going to solve this what? This question. Now let's assume that the total orange, let's take the total orange to be what? To be equal to n, and that is what we are asked to what? To look for. So once we get the value of m, we've gotten the value of the total orange. Now let's consider the first boy for a 1. Now, 3 boys share some oranges. The first received 1/3 of the oranges. But 1 received 1 divided by 3 multiplied by the orange, m, right? Good. And what will the first boy receive? M divided by what? 3. Right? That is what the first boy will receive. Now, if the first boy receive 1 divided by m, how many orange do you think will remain? The remaining orange now will now be what? M minus m divided by 3, right? Because the second boy received a fraction of the remaining. So if we simplify this, we're going to have this to be divided by 1. The LCM will be what? 3. I'm trying to minus the board. 3 divided by 1 is 3. 3 times m will give us 3m, right? Minus 3 divided by 3 is 1. 1 times m will give us m. So this is going to give us 2m divided by 3. That is the remaining oranges. Now we'll go again to boy 2. So the question says, and the second received 2/3 of the what? The remainder. So the second received 2/3 multiplied by 2m divided by what? By 3. Is that not so? That is the 2/3 of the what? Of the remainder. And when you simplify this, this is just simply going to give you, simplify it, and you are going to have that to give what? 4 what? M divided by 3 times 3 will give us what? 9. Remember, we are not adding, we are multiplying. So the second received 4m divided by 9. And what did boy 3 receive? Boy 3 received how many orange? The third boy received the remaining 12 oranges. 12. And that asks you, how many oranges do we have? Now, this is what? Simple and straightforward. So all we need to do is to now add. The total orange we have is what? Is m. So if the total orange we have is m, our m will now be equal to the first boy orange, m divided by 3, right? Plus the second boy's orange is 4m divided by 9, plus the third boy orange is what? 12. So if we add all these things, simplify this, we are going to have the value of what? We're going to have the value of m. So once you're able to find the value of m, you're good to go. So how do we simplify this? We already have this. We're going to simplify this. We simplify this. This is going to give us what? Let's do a straight simplification. To simplify this, this is going to give us 9, right? 9 divided by 3 is 3. 3 times m will give us 3m plus 4 what? 4m, because 9 divided by what? 9 is 1. 1 times m is going to give us 4m. So this generally is going to give us what? 7m divided by 9 plus 12 divided by 1, and that will be equal to what? This will be equal to m. So to simplify this further, what do we have? We're going to simplify this further. And how I will simplify this, I'll just simply multiply through by 9 to make the equation very, very easy for me. If I multiply through by 9, that equation is now going to give me 7m divided by 9 multiplied by 9 plus 12 times 9 equal to 9 times what? Times m. So once this clears this, we'll have this to become 7m plus 12 times 9 is going to give me what? 12 times 9, 9 times 2 is 18, we'll have 8. 9 times 1 is 9 plus 1, 10, that is 108. That will be equal to 9 what? M, right? So I'm going to subtract 7m from both sides. If I subtract 7m from both sides, I'll have this to now give me what? That will now give me what? This will now give me 108 equal to 9m minus 7m, right? So 9 minus 7 is going to give us 2m. So we'll have our 2m to be equal to 108. If I divide here by 2 and divide here by 2, 2 will clear 2. 2 here will give me 1. 2 here will give me what? 5. 2 here will give me what? 4. So at the end, my m will be equal to 54 what? 54 oranges. So you see, very, very easy. When you are giving this in JAMB, you're not supposed to spend more than 8 seconds or 10 seconds solving this question, and boom, your result will just what? Will just pop out. So the total number of oranges they share is what? 54 oranges. Very, very easy. So you see, solving mathematics question is very easy. What we're going to start doing from next week, we're going to start taking other sections of your syllabus. Since we are taking section 1, other weeks we might move to section 2, take a topic in section 2, we move to section 3, take a topic in section 3, so that we can be able to cover a lot before your exam. We'll start from the behind permutation and combination, and then we can be able to finish a lot of things before your exams. So in our next class, we're going to consider indices, logarithm, and what? And sort. That is the aspect we're going to look at. We're going to briefly look at these aspects and we'll find solutions to this question. Don't miss that date. Remember, the date is going to be on what? On Saturday, on Friday by 4 to 5, or if we miss 4 to 5, then we'll have it at what? 5 to 6. So if you are watching this, remember to also invite your what? Your friends to join us as we solve series of questions on the preparation for the JAMB UTME exam. Don't forget to like this video, share it with your friends, and remember to subscribe to our channel. I'm going to send a lot of questions in the description section of this live. I will drop a picture of questions I want you to answer in the next class. And to help yourself, go and check other series of questions in your JAMB UTME exams. Check those questions that are related to what we have discussed, and make sure that you face this question and then see how you can do what you can conclude with this question. So these are the few things we are going to take today. Until next time, I want to say bye-bye for now. Thanks so much for joining us in our live stream today. See you next time.